My guest today is a good friend of mine. He's been featured at Edinburgh Comedy Festival, Seattle International Comedy Competition, and San Francisco Comedy Competition, both of which I haven't been accepted to. I'm excited to welcome Andrew Frank today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Adam.
First time in our new setup here. It was getting a little creepy in the other room we had. It was like none of the angles were doing me any favors, dude. So luckily, hopefully we're going to do single camera for this one, but we might be adding a second one, and we'll see if we can get video out on this. It's kind of short flow, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So we've known each other for 2.5 years or something.
Yeah, I got to Seattle in 2019, January. So
where did you move from at that point?
I was living in Chicago for a little while at that point, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, let's go through the origin, because I've always been kind of curious about this story. You've done comedy probably across the country more than anyone I know. And let me grab my question sheet too. I'm a very detailed interviewer. But when did you start?
I started at 14 years old. It was the talent show.
14?
14 at the talent show at my Christian high school freshman year. And then I won that contest, the talent show at the school. And then I started doing the open mic.
What was it called?
The name of the high school?
No, the competition.
Oh, it's just the school talent show.
Okay. You didn't have like a funny Christian name.
No. But yeah, that was my first set doing original material. Before the year before, I did like an impression of my one of the teachers in the 8th grade talent show. Mm-hmm. But that was more like a comedy sketch. But freshman year was my first. Like I did 10 minutes of material, and then I started going to this coffee house, the St. Charles Coffee House. That was like a music and poetry open mic, and it was like all just high schoolers. And every Tuesday and Thursday, I did like 15 minutes for all of high school. And then when I graduated, I started going to the St. Louis Funny Bone, which is the club in town.
When you were doing that, were you doing stand up at the coffee house, or were you like doing a blend of like storytelling? Because it's weird. I mean, Quinn, who's Lil Q, who's been on the pod quite a bit.
I love Quinn. I think he's good.
Yeah, he actually cut his teeth quite a bit at like coffee shops like that, where it was like mixed. What did you think? Like, did it help you, or like?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of great stage time, and it was sort of a return audience. Like the same people kept seeing me week after week, so it really challenged me to keep writing material. Which is like early on, that's what you got to do. You just got to write as much as you can and keep coming up with ideas and keep trying them out. Because you're not going to keep almost anything. It's just going to keep just got to learn how to do it. It was like the best part of any week for me. I would like work on stuff during school, and then I would bring it I would like ride my bike or walk over to the coffee house. Yeah.
Who were you? How did you get into comedy? Because 14, like what were your inspirations? Like what were you watching? Were you listening? Like what was it?
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I was so sheltered. Everything was so censored. Like, Comedy Central was blocked on our television. I grew up Fundamentalist Christian, a very extreme version of it. And so, everything was blocked on our TV, and, I definitely never saw it in person, but it's so strange. Like my 2 basketball coaches who coached me all throughout, like from 3rd grade to when I graduated, they grew up with like the most famous Christian comedian. His name is Tim Hawkins. Mm-hmm. He's kind of like Weird Al for Christians. He does like a lot of parodies of praise and worship songs and stuff. I met him and I saw him perform at this mega church. And then he let me open for him when I was like 15 or 16 in front of like 1,000 people. And that was amazing.
That's ridiculous.
I met him and I was like, oh, like he was just like a guy to me. And I was like, oh, like this is a job that you can have. Then I got really interested in it. And then my parents and like relatives and stuff were buying me all these like Christian comedy DVDs. It was this DVD series called Bananas. And there was like ventriloquists and Christian comics. And so that's the first stand-up I saw. And then Bill Cosby. I saw Cosby live a few times.
Really?
Yep. And a
lot of like knee slapping. And like it just, I can't, what was that like?
What, to see Cosby?
Yeah.
Live? Or
I've heard he was unreal, like really good.
Yeah.
At least in like workout sets.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very skilled comedian. And he would do really long shows. The show that I saw him was at the Fox Theater. It was like a 2.5 hour show. So, I mean,
that's wild.
Anyway, so, but then
so he's your favorite.
No. I mean, he like, honestly, when I was a teenager, he was the model of like what a great stand-up comic was. And I remember, I mean, this is absurd. It's just funny how much you change over the years.
Well, how old are you now?
In this story, like,
no, like currently
28.
28. So you've been doing comedy for 14 years and you're not even 30 yet.
Yeah. But I remember like when I was just starting out, like even when I was going to the Funny Bone at like, as like an 18, 19, 20 year old, I was like on stage, like wearing Cosby sweaters and stuff. Cause I thought that's what you did.
That's crazy.
I would go to Goodwill and buy like a sweater that I thought.
Well, it was so different too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you were sheltered, but in addition to that, what year was that? It was 14 years ago, or I guess no, 10 years ago now. I guess the internet had started to like really impact stand up, but prior to like that big movement of the internet and podcasting, it was just like what was on Comedy Central or DVDs.
Yeah.
And you didn't have either one of them.
Didn't have it, but I got really lucky that I got accepted into the Funny Bone in St. Louis pretty quickly. I got like a job as a door guy and I was working the box office and stuff. And so that was like, I was just at the club all the time, doing open mics, doing guest spots, and then working the door every Saturday, which was a 3-show Saturday. So it was like 7:30, 10 and midnight. And I saw every show for, 5 years straight,
crazy.
So I really studied.
Was there like anybody that was like a regular there who's now pretty like successful?
I came in after some people had already gotten pretty big and they left. So Tommy Johnigan was one, Nikki Glazer was another. Mm-hmm. The person that I saw the most that really had an influence on me, such a great comic, is Josh Arnold. He took over for the Bob and Tom show. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the hosts of the Bob and Tom show now. But he was there the whole time I was there. He was just like living in town. He was working the road and stuff. And I got to see him do sets all the time.
And what about him was so influential for you?
I just saw him work on his material. Like, also Greg Warren. I don't know if you know who Greg Warren is. He was also like an incredible comic, still is. But just seeing these like really experienced comics work on their material week after week, and to see how it grows, to see what they keep, to see what they cut out, to see how the stuff evolves over a course of time. That showed me a lot about the creative process that I was able to do for myself.
Well, you are someone too that can break down stuff at a very like granular level. And we were talking last night, just for some inside scoop for people listening. I mean, it's interesting the more I do comedy and talk to different people, like kind of the levels of like, it's like chess almost, where like, you talk to somebody and you're like, wow, this person is operating on a much different frequency. But when like you don't have the eye for it, you don't really see it or recognize it. And it's also like complicated because we watch each other quite a bit. But it's crazy. It's to know somebody with this much experience and being so young. It's just, I mean, I'm lucky to have you in my life and
Thanks,
all
man.
that. And
that's nice.
I'm gonna take off my shirt now, and but so what was the progression though? Like, how did you went from the Funny Bone to did you start like you did a competition, then you got on the road?
Yeah, that was maybe when I was like 22. I was definitely working. The Midwest is fun as like a young comic. You get a lot of stage time, and there's a lot of one-nighters that pop up everywhere. There's all these like people in Missouri and Illinois who are like, I'm going to start a club. And then they do, and it's like open for 2 months or whatever. And so I got a lot of that work early on. And so, yeah, like started traveling and stuff. And then I did this contest. It was called Make Me Laugh. And I won the contest in St. Louis, and they were doing all these other contests in all these other cities. And I don't really know how it happened, but I won the contest, and then I either talked my way into it or they talked me into it. But I got in the car with them and did the rest of the tour with them, which was we started in St. Louis and ended in Anchorage, Alaska. So that was the first time I ever came out west. But it was like a 52 city tour for like three months, maybe.
How did you? What was the path that you went?
St. Louis, and then we just kept going west, and then we went all the way up the coast.
Yeah, Alaska's fucking weird. But you had said when we were talking, like that really taught you about your material and like how to, or just looking at it differently. Because one thing when you're doing comedy in like one spot, you really have those tastes of those people, and you know, that can be reflected in your material quite a bit. And you had said, weren't you like doing stuff that was a lot more like you were kind of unaware, right? Like,
yeah.
And how is it in general? Like, cause I haven't really worked the Midwest. I've done like a little bit in Chicago and Minnesota, but like, is it just wide open in the middle of the country, or what would you say?
In what way do you mean wide open?
Well, Monica Nevi she's going to be on the next episode, and she was talking about just people having the road on them a little bit.
Yeah.
And how like people come back to the coast and are doing jokes that would like never fly in this area.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, there's definitely some attitude. Like, you really just got to know what your attitudes are and who you are and what you believe. And, or at least that's my philosophy, is to just sort of be myself everywhere I go. And there's all kinds of stuff you can learn from each audience and each environment. But, yeah, I don't know. I would say like having the road on you is like, sometimes you can pick up some really cheap tricks or some sort of hackier ways of doing things, because it's kind of the law of least resistance. It's like, you just end up sort of like, you don't know how you're working on material, but you don't know how to close a joke. So you end up like, taking the easy route. You take like these tricks that already sort of exist. And yeah, I try to stay away from those as much as I can, you know, try to be as original as you can and as vulnerable as you can. Because honesty is like the best way to go about everything. Like, yeah, whatever the most honest version of yourself, that's, I think, what you should do on stage. But it is hard to do in some environments. You know, you've got to be really, really strong, and yeah, really creative and adaptable. If I'm thinking about this like phrase, like having the road on you, it's like sometimes like the jokes can be a little jokier instead of like deep truths about yourself or about like the way you see life.
Just,
you know?
more like general, or like more, I just look at it like there's not the back of the room to keep you in check.
Yeah.
And
you got to be the back of the room for yourself.
And that's a dangerous place to be the editor, creator, critique. And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a few people that are predominantly road comics, and you can see a little bit on them. It wasn't that bad, but I'm like, oh, that's, I wouldn't, like, you look at like the quality stuff in their material, and then they have these kind of like cheaper things that you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't keep that in there, but I'm sure it works fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it does. Cause like what we were saying is like, you know, in a lot of parts of the country, like, especially in smaller, towns, like sometimes like a comedy show pops up and no one there hasn't been a regular presence of comedy in that place.
Bass fishing and camping and
yeah,
sorry.
So like, yeah, like my goal personally is to like, to do jokes and to have like have an act that is so strong that people who love comedy can see its originality and can get it, like in a way where it like, is in conversation with all the other comedy they've seen, and somebody who's like just walking in, like who doesn't have like that much experience with stand-up comedy, they'll still enjoy it too. But I definitely want the people who love comedy to be seeing something different, to be seeing something where it's like, it's sort of fun to be in on, like, where it's like, I'm obsessed with jokes. I've heard and told so many jokes. You've heard and told so many jokes. It's like, so if I can surprise you or like tell a joke in a way that you've never heard, it's just I like that kind of laugh and that connection more.
What do you think is the most critical to maintaining that?
Just having a high standard, like just having integrity, you know, like, not like, I mean, I think the biggest thing is to just keep exploring and to keep trying new things, to constantly be editing from show to show. 'Cause you can get stuck in a way of telling a joke that isn't the best way of telling that joke, but it gets a response, and you're just going to see diminishing returns. You're just going to see that like your excitement, your relationship to those jokes fade, like the response is going to fade. So I just think, you know, always trying to improve the material and, like really caring about the jokes and finding like what you think is the best way to tell them. That's the key to me.
It's so, I know we're nerding out about this like super hard. It's even just weird to talk about it at times. 'Cause I know what you're talking about, where you see someone who's kind of like one dimensional, where like they're going to be playing in it. I think comedy and music have a lot of similarities, or comedy and like skateboarding, or these things where it's like open source, where everybody learns from one another. Like there's not this like, oh, this path you go down, you're going to do it. Like there are people that are technicians with guitars where like they know all the scales and they can play whatever, but they can't jam. And like with comics, there are riff comics and improv comics and fucking great joke comics, and like, but having like multiple skills where you can both perform, write a joke, improvise, sell the joke. Like there's just so many levels, and you see those people that like, if they're not continuing to progress, they got like that one skill. And I think it feeds into what you're saying, where if they've seen the trick once, it diminishing returns. Yeah. And like a lot of people go down the path, well, I'm just going to keep trying to write the next best trick. Yeah. And I think most people want to see variety.
Yeah. I mean, I think all these skills sort of come from a place of like, if you know who you are, and if you keep investigating that, if you keep exploring that, there's just going to be more depth to what you do. So like, you know, if you really examine who you are and what your experience of life has been, you will be a good writer. If you're really writing down those things, if you really know who you are and what your voice is, you're going to improvise well because it's going to be coming from you. Like, but like that sort of one dimensionality, or like, if a comic is sort of one trick, it's like, that's not really what a person actually is. Like, people have all these different levels to them. And, so like I tried to, you know, in my material, I want to bring a complexity, like, to each joke that like contains a lot of feelings and a lot of like my own history and the way I see the world, like
a lot of color. And just depth to it.
Yeah. And then like over the course of the act, it's like when you have all of your jokes align like that, like there's a consistency to who you are, your personality, like your worldview. Then it's just like the rewards are exponential, because like for you as an artist and for the crowd seeing you, like they're like, oh, this is true. This is the way this person is. And like, it's a much better bond, I think, with the crowd.
Yeah, I agree. How important do you think, like, this is just a personal question, being on and off stage? Because you see some people where they're constantly on stage. Mm-hmm. And I think it, like, my personal opinion is it reduces the well of how much you can pull from and the actual life experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And for me, I got into stand-up so late that not so late, but later than a lot of people, that I felt like I had a lot of like real life experiences, good and bad, that I I kind of know who I am, and doing this actually has helped a lot because you talk to all these different people, and it's like it forces you to, be yourself. Some of the early episodes are really bad, dude. Like really. Sorry, everybody, but it like how much for you personally? How much do you think like you need to be on or off stage, living life, and then being on stage?
That's a good question. I definitely like to be on stage as much as I can, but because there's definitely a way to do both, where it's like you are living your life, like like you're probably only going to be on stage at the most for like an hour a day, or if you're doing multiple shows, like a couple hours. There's a whole other part of life to every day, even if you are on stage every day. So I think it's not a matter of like how much are you on stage or how much you're off stage, but it's like in your daily experience and in your experience on stage, how much of yourself are you bringing to that? Like, what is your awareness level when you're on stage? Like, how much are you being yourself? How much are you, genuinely exploring and curious and creative and stuff? Same thing in life. It's like, how much are you paying attention to your life? To the stuff in life, to people and environments and stuff. Like that's, there's a way to do it all the time, but maybe not. Maybe you do have to like, turn yourself off a little bit sometimes to recover. That's something I'm like learning as an adult now. It's like, well, I was always just like perform, and there's not always the best compensation. So you like sort of need to survive. You just get as many shows as you can. I would burn out a lot, in my early 20s and stuff. I just didn't know like how to rest or recover or, I didn't know any of that stuff.
Like how much were you doing? Was it the driving and shit or?
Oh yeah. Just driving all over the country, sleeping in my car a lot as well. Like,
how'd you do it? Like in the trunk or like back seat or?
In the back seat, or like sometimes you do it in the front seat and you just like lean your seat back
all the way.
Yeah, but then I would like be at a rest stop and I would like be in the driver's seat sleeping, and I would like jolt up and like think I was
driving.
Because I'm in the driver's seat, so I'd like think I was gonna die. That happened so many times.
Yeah. That's wild. And I never understood, like I can never fucking sleep with half my body in a seated position and then half my body
It's not like good sleep.
No. It's terrible. And there are so many guys that do it. I if I had to do it, I would sleep in my trunk. Like I would just lay.
Is it big enough?
I'd lay like I can get my feet through the seat pocket thing.
Okay.
And then when I started going by laughs, there was like a weird gap. I went down to Seattle on a Saturday and I didn't have anything to do, so
you're sleeping in the trunk at Laughs.
First time I fucking went to Laughs, I'm sure somebody saw me. If not David York, the old bartender, like I emerged like out of the trunk of my car and just was trying to show face, like
that's great.
Super funny.
That's funny. You work in the road from Everett to Seattle. Sleeping in your car in Seattle.
There was like a show at 4 and then nothing till like 8. Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm fucking tired.
I get it.
Just was a weird look, but
yeah. I mean, up until like, this was recent in Sacramento, I was doing a festival and I was so tired. And I just like, if the weather's good, just go sleep in a park.
Oh yeah.
That's the trick.
How do you do it though?
You just lay down and close your eyes.
Yeah. But like, did you blanket or anything?
I had a blanket and a pillow. Yeah.
Okay.
Under a tree.
There you go. Yeah. Nothing weird happened to you?
No.
Sacramento can be a little weird though. Like that area.
I was the one being weird.
Why?
I don't know.
I mean,
I had a pillow and a blanket out there.
We're broke.
No one's going to beat that.
No. You just look like you're napping there.
Yeah.
But if you had a couple days on you, like kept growing your beard out, then you would start looking like you're living at the park.
Yeah.
But, so you went from touring the country though, to actually, can you tell the story about that club owner? The one that you told me.
I don't know which one it is.
The one that was like calling
I'm not gonna say who it is, but it's so funny.
Yeah, no, it's so great.
There's a Midwest club.
Let's set this up by saying, like, I mean, you and several other comics have told me, like, throughout the country, there's like no checks and balances for can you be a comedy club owner. Like, it is open to anyone who, like you said, like, I want a comedy club, and you just start one up.
Yep.
And so the type of people that this attracts is completely across the board.
The funniest thing to me, like when people in Missouri and Illinois and stuff start up a club, they don't even know any comedians. So they start a room and then they're like, okay. They don't know any comedians.
Yeah, zero.
And they can't get a hold of them or anything. So then that's like, that's how people would that's how I would end up headlining these shows at like 23.
It's crazy.
Anyway, but the story you're asking about it's actually one of my favorite clubs and one of my favorite club owners. But I've seen him multiple times. The club would be struggling and people would make reservations and then not show up. And then he would call their homes and be like, you made a reservation. Where are you? And he would like try and track everybody down. He's like, you promised you'd be here.
You made a commitment.
Yeah. We saved a table for you. And it's so funny in a small town to be doing that, to be calling people up at their homes.
Wouldn't he leave voicemails too?
Yeah.
You said,
yeah.
That must have
been. Where are you?
Can you imagine like a restaurant doing that? Like you get a reservation at a restaurant and then you don't show and you get a call from the owner.
We planned our whole night around you. We really wanted you to be here.
We thought out the steaks, like all that shit is ridiculous.
Yeah.
God damn it. Do you have any, I know this is kind of on the spot, but do you have any decent, just like, I mean, you've been around the country, seeing all kinds of shit. Do you have any other decent stories from the road or just from crazy club experiences?
Yeah. I saw Anthony Jeselnik slap an audience member.
Whoa.
Did I tell you about that?
No.
This was like St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day in St. Louis at the Funny Bone. We'll say like 2013 or 14. He had just done his first roast.
Okay.
And so he was like starting to get big.
Yeah.
And packed show. People are so drunk. It's the 10 o'clock show on a Saturday. And somebody was passed out in the front row. They were too drunk and they fell asleep. And so he's kind of joking about that throughout the show. And then he tells a 9/11 joke. It doesn't work. It doesn't get that much of a response. And he goes, I think I told that joke wrong. Tells the joke exactly the same way. Same delivery, same wording. And he's like, I think I did it wrong again. Tells it the third time, exact wording, exact delivery. And he's like, I know what's missing. Tells it the fourth time, and when he hits the punchline, he slapped, as he's saying the punchline, slapped the guy, and he just he didn't even wake up. He just went, ugh, and went down, and the crowd just went crazy.
What the fuck?
It was wild.
Yeah.
And then, so it closes the show, and then he goes out to sell his CDs. He was selling his Shakespeare CD. And then the drunk guy was awake and everybody told him what happened. And then that guy came up and slapped Jeselnik at the merch table. And then all the door guys carried him out.
Jesus.
And kicked him out.
But
it's like Jeselnik slapped him. So
that's wild.
I've never seen anything like it.
Were you in that moment, were you shocked or were you guys laughing?
I laughed a lot.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how hard he slapped him or what, but because maybe, because I've hung out with him a few times and he's a very, very nice person. So maybe he would maybe he slapped him lightly and made it look like it was hard.
I don't know, man. Because when you get on stage, that adrenaline pops and you can lose. It's a very fine line of losing.
Yeah.
Have you ever lost your shit on stage?
No.
To where afterward you're like, wow,
No, there the biggest example of that would be this guy halfway through my set in St. Louis was he said, if you keep talking about the Bible, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And it was like halfway into my set, and then the whole set kind of became about him. It was a sold out room on a Saturday, and so I was making fun of him.
Why'd you do it in that voice though?
What?
That's
what he said.
No, but he said it with a twang for sure.
Nah, I don't know. But I remember, so I kept making fun of him and stuff, and then I did probably 15 more minutes on stage, and then I said my last joke, and I was like, "That's my time, everybody. Good night." And I walked over to him. He was like sitting right on the edge of the stage. I walked over to him to shake his hand, and he went out to shake my hand, and then I turned around and flipped him off and walked off, and then everyone went crazy.
That's fucking funny too.
That's the only time anything like that has happened.
That's wild. Let's talk about some religion shit. So your dad was what was his title or role? Like a preacher or pastor? I don't know.
Pastor.
I'm not. I went to Catholic middle school. Yeah. And I got kicked out.
Okay. So why did you get kicked out?
I had a pattern of behavior. I think
is that what they told you?
Would say. At one point I not threatened, but I would fucking with the staff because these schools, they're so protective of their kids. Mm-hmm. If we did anything, it would turn, the teachers would find out and whatever. And so it was 7th grade, we were going to make weed brownies. And we had talked about it, and one fucking Catholic kid heard it who shouldn't have heard it. And then the teachers found out. And I had this meeting with the administrator, and he's like, "What's going on with these brownies? I hear about these brownies." And then my mom found out and all this shit. But the best thing that we did, it was actually really fun fucking around at that school, but we kept talking about on the last day of school, something's going to happen. And we just kept the math teacher would be like, "Hey, are you guys almost done?" You're like, "Yeah, we are, but you'll see what happens on the last day." And we just floated misinformation. Yeah. They brought a bunch of us in there into a room and we don't know what's going on the last day of school. But it's not going on the last day of school. The best part is the last day of school came and all the teachers came out. They were on high alert. Huh. And we just all took our stuff and left. It was 2 weeks of just getting people riled up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Probably not the best timing with things that had happened historically around school.
It was probably around Columbine, right? But there's a difference between weed brownies and then Columbine.
Yeah, no, there's a substantial difference, I think. But
anyway,
back to your childhood.
Oh yeah. I guess the history of it is that really, really young, my dad was one of the producers for the local news. He went to journalism school, and he was working for the news station. And then I guess he we were always Christian, but then he became really devout. And then he started doing video stuff for our church, and then the church was church, because evangelical churches are always trying to make new churches. So then they were like, "Okay, we want you to start a church," and then he started a church, and then he was the pastor of that church. And he's currently the pastor of a church in Arkansas. So he's been preaching for the last 15 years.
Did you grow up with a belief in God? You personally?
Yes. And there was no other option.
Yeah.
Didn't even know.
At what age did you start questioning that?
Probably 10, 11, 12, something I always had questions, but I started really voicing the questions at that time. And I remember, even before this whole talent show thing, I would go to church camp, and they would do story of the day, and any churchgoer could go up there and tell a story. So I was that was kind of my first bout into some observations, some jokes, making fun of stuff. I remember going to church camp every year, even after I stopped believing, because I wanted to get up in front of the church, and because there's 300 people. Anyway, so I remember anytime I got to talk in front of anybody, I was always questioning it and always kind of making fun of it, because there was just so many ridiculous things in the church and in my Christian school.
Would you say stand-up was like that type of role was appealing because of the attention, or because this is something I think a lot about. Like, there are a lot of different types of stand-ups, and I want to keep talking about the religion stuff, but like you said, 300 people, you were in front of 1,000 people or whatever. Like, does being in front of a lot of people like fill that hole for you, or like
Sure.
it? Because for me personally, I don't like being in front of people.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know that many stand-ups that feel that way.
Yeah. I definitely like attention on stage, but I think I'm a little more, what's more appealing to me is this sort of the mode of communication. Like, stand-up is this amazing thing where you're one person, you can stand in front of a crowd and you can sort of cut through the bullshit, or you can challenge power in a way that, like, usually the person on stage in church, school, anything is aligned with power. So they're like carrying out the interest of power, but you as a single comedian, you can call bullshit out, and then like you have this whole audience, and we all, like, people know things deep down, but no one like says it out loud, or like no one in a position of authority in the moment says
control.
it. Yeah. So it's like, it's this great way to cause some anarchy for a second, you know?
Yeah.
So I like that part about it.
Okay. So it's the mechanism of like potential change or influence, or like getting people to be comfortable with those thoughts and feelings and be open about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. I don't know. I think for me, it's just like that pop, like getting that first new idea, the creative process. It's just so rewarding in stand-up, because I've done some writing where other people have done material I've written. I did it a couple times early on, and it is such I'm blown away that so many people can do that, to like
Write for other people. Yeah.
it just would be, I'm sure, like, you know, the means justify the ends or whatever, but like to have something that's like your creation from you being delivered by somebody else would be, I mean, it's crazy that the Bible, you know, that it's worked so long for them. But
Yeah.
that's a nice segue back to religion. So you, like, when did you voice sort of these feelings that like the church, or just that you didn't believe in God, to your family? Because that had to have been really challenging.
Yeah, it definitely was challenging. I would say maybe at like 15 or 16, I started saying some things. But I mean, to be honest, I had my outlets. I had some people who understood me. And yeah, and part of this is just like teenage angst and stuff, but like, I didn't really talk about it with them. Like, it didn't seem like they were going to be able to, like, they were always trying to like control perceptions, and like trying to, like, anytime I like cast any doubt, it was like, I mean, every adult in my life, like anytime you cast doubt, they're just trying to get you back. They're just discouraging doubt. And when doubt is like this great way to like figure out what you do believe and like test some stuff. So I didn't like say stuff out loud a lot to them until probably like, 18, 19, 20. I mean, like, I just had to do it on stage. That was kind of it was a big deal for me to say the stuff on stage. And it was a big deal for me that it was a random group of people, just strangers, on any given night.
Yeah.
So I could like figure out what I believe, but it's like, there weren't any sort of like consequences, because you're just, doing a show in a small room, and you sort of like, yeah, you get to learn something about yourself. You get to learn something about the way other people see the world. But then you just go to the next show. You go to the next town or whatever.
Dude, I envy, I'm not jealous, but I respect and envy the experience you have. Like, to have started doing this at 14 into where you're at.
Yeah.
But what I don't envy is you, and to younger comics, like Courtney Bird and I talked about this, where it's like, I didn't know who the fuck I was. I'm still continuing. I don't think you ever fully have it wrapped up, but like,
and it keeps changing too.
Maybe 30 was when I started feeling like, you know what, this is me. but to go through those transitions while being on stage and trying to be vulnerable, like you said, and dealing with like those elements to it, like the way you talk about, you know, the environment you were in, it's almost like someone being in the closet, and it's like, that's just a lot of fucking pressure. Sure. It's a tremendous amount of pressure.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And it, like, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but it's like, I do want to shift the perspective a little bit. Like some people would go like, you know, oh, like, I don't know. People have said like things about like courage or bravery or something. It's like, okay, that's a little bit of it, but a lot of it's like desperation. Like I just needed to be myself, and I needed to like find a way to be at peace with so much of stuff. And so it's like, as fun as comedy is, and it's like, it's funny and it's creative, and it is a good thing. Like there's some like it was a way for me to deal with some excruciating like internal stuff,
trauma
over the trauma for over the course of years. And fortunately, comedy does make you feel good, and comedy does make you feel connected to yourself and connected to other people. So yeah, like, but it is like a little, like, I don't know. There was a sense of desperation early on, like just sort of like chasing this thing that was going to make me feel better. I just needed to feel better. You know? So. Do
you think, like, I think the reason why I started trying to be funny or being funny, I even like question that at times, but like, I think it was a coping mechanism I had things happen to me and I could either cry about it or laugh about it. And it was more like soothing to me to laugh and make jokes about it than to sort of like deal with those actual emotions. Sure. So I think it like fractured some things where it's like, it's just easier for me to make jokes about it than to deal with like the only thing that cuts through for me, and it's really weird because it didn't initially, but like until I lost a friend of mine to suicide, like I really didn't know what it meant for someone to die. Like I'd seen some older people die and that was sad or whatever, but to somebody my age now, when somebody dies, I'm just like, it hits me like a fucking ton of brick. Like I just lost another dude that I knew, and like, I know what it means for that person to just be permanently gone. Yeah. And a lot of other emotions I just don't really like, I don't fully grasp because it's like underdeveloped, and it's just easier for me to fucking laugh about it and like make jokes to sort of like it almost is like rocking yourself or something.
Yeah,
you know?
I get it. Yeah.
But I think there are a couple different camps with comics like that, because there are some comics that do have that. And those are usually the comics I like the most. But then there are also comics that have really good childhoods and like they're very positive, happy people. And I'm like, you just like the attention of being on stage or like the creativity or whatever.
Sure. But
I don't know if there was really a question in that. I just observation, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think even if you do have a good childhood, if you're a human being and you pay attention to the world, if you pay attention to the suffering in the world, you're going to go through some intense emotions. So no one is like, no one is immune to that, you know, to paying attention to the human condition. So,
yeah, I just think even when I went to shows, because before I started doing stand up, I would go almost every weekend to like Parlor or Underground and stuff. Like there would be members of the audience where they'd be like groaning, and I'd be like, are you people stupid? Like, it's a comedy show. Like, this is supposed to be a joke. And I just, like, the thing that I would say offends me, if anything, in comedy is, like, someone doing a joke consistently that's not working. And, like, not being aware enough to, like, make changes. And we're all, you know, we all can be willing, but that, like, lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the same thing. I definitely am offended by like laziness in comedy, unawareness in comedy. Comedy takes a great deal of awareness. And what's offensive to me is if if a comic is getting a lot, like some laughs, or they've built some joke, but they've built it on false premises, they've built it on stereotypes, or especially harmful stereotypes, and the joke is working, and they continue to do it, even though they know, like, or maybe they don't personally know, but like when I see it, I go, but that's not even true. Like, or it's just like a really narrow way of seeing people. And it's like the sort of the laugh that you're getting isn't worth the sort of like, perpetuating
the damage.
Stereotype. Yeah. It's not like, I mean, like for like what comics will do to like, you know, they get addicted to that. Like they're like, but this laugh, like, and it's like, well, just be better, like create better laughs, like create laughs that, you know, have the sort of social impact that you want in a room. Like, you know, I don't know. I know I personally I like the laughter of like epiphany, or I like the laughter of like, I believed one thing and now I believe a new thing, or like, laughter that comes from curiosity or like the imagination, and there's stuff like that. I love stuff like that.
Sort of levels to that though, where like, dude, your ear is trained.
Yeah.
You've spent how many hundreds of hours in these rooms watching comedy from a very young age, whereas like you can see stuff and recognize stuff at such a different level. So I would say most of the time when you see that, it's because the person, I mean, I was extremely guilty of a lot of that behavior, and probably still am. I'm like, it's just that self-awareness is hard. It takes a lot of time, and like, it hurts too. Yeah. Like when you're looking at something, you're like, I like this, but I shouldn't. It's
I know,
fucking hard.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things, like I definitely went through this. This was like a little bit before I went on that first tour. But I started to realize, like, because I saw it in myself and I saw it in so many other comics, where it's like a comic will have like some jokes that they don't really like, but they get a response that they do like the response, and they keep those jokes in their act, and they're only sort of postponing their self-actualization, or like if you hold on to jokes that you don't like, but you like the way that people are reacting to them, like you got to replace those jokes, get rid of those jokes, put anything else in there. It's something that you do like, something that you want to talk about, something that you think is funny. Cause like if you're letting the crowd dictate what you do on stage, like if you're just doing it to get a response out of them, like you're not going to be yourself, and you're going to hate yourself, you know?
Dude, you're the first person in 80, whatever, this is 86 or 87 right now, that's made that statement.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, but nobody has touched on that. And it's such a weird thing when it's like, this is I also know that dog that keeps barking. But it's weird when it's something that you made, and at one point you liked it, and now you don't like it anymore. Yeah. And I think it's just like you've talked about before, raising your like bottom. There it is. And
let it go. And like, I mean, I know the reason people hang on to it. There's this deep fear where you're like, I don't have anything else. I don't have any other material. I don't have any other ideas. This whole, like, fear of like, I'm not going to come up with anything, or I don't have anything to say. Like that fear, I understand the fear. It's real, but it's not true. Like your brain, like, is constantly thinking of like, just hold on to some thoughts that you like, write down your thoughts. We have this fear that I'm never going to have a new experience. I'm never going to have a new realization. Like, but they're just constantly happening. We have to pay attention to them.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
and
if there's a couple jokes you don't like, just like get rid of them and replace them with literally anything you've been thinking about lately, and it will become something good
and better.
Yeah.
Because you're operating with more tools.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the newer jokes that you write, like, they're going to be better, I think, as you go along. Definitely like save the jokes that have gotten really strong. I mean, I tell jokes that I wrote 8 years ago. Like probably I tell one joke that I wrote, but I've also been continuing to write it and like make it more and more complex as time went on. But I found like, this is an experience I had coming back from the San Francisco thing, where it's like I did my contest set and I had everything like line for line, and like I really planned it all out, and it was like material I'd been building for years. And I've written like, 3 or 4 jokes since I got back that are like better than what I was doing then, and they're like brand new, and so they're gonna keep getting better. So it's like, don't be afraid to get rid of your stuff, because you're gonna replace it with better stuff.
Well, Louis has that thing about opening with his closer.
Yeah.
Where like he would have like, I think he said like 40 minutes of material, and he knew he was closing on that, so he could rely on that. And he moved the closer to the beginning to force the other material to be better afterwards, because he would have to follow that.
Yeah.
And that whole piece of like, it's just so hard, or it's so easy to get wrapped up in so many different prongs of stand-up on its own, like the performance piece, which is the part that I'm still like super confused by all the time.
What are you confused about? Let's solve it.
I think for a very, very long time, I was not trusting the audience. And because I don't trust people, like I just grew up in a way that like I lived in 10 states by the time I was like 10 years old. And I learned that if I kept to myself, I wouldn't get fucked with. And so if people came and approached me, they were either being overly nice or being overly aggressive. And I'm fearful whenever I meet someone new of like, oh, this is someone trying to prey on me. And also like certain people that I grew up around did prey on me. So it's like when I meet someone new, even like after a show, even I've talked about this, like someone will come up to me like, hey, I really enjoyed that. I'm like, I don't know the fuck
what do you want?
Yeah, you know, like I'm like, I know we just had a connection, but I didn't have the connection I need for, and I'm working on it. But I think when I started realizing that I was looking at everyone stand up with all stand up that I was watching with a very judgmental eye.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't looking at what's wrong necessarily, or more just like trying to enjoy it. And when I go as a fan to watch, like I'm a very supportive audience member, and like a lot of these people know it's like you're not performing at the Neptune or whatever. Like it's a certain level of comedy that they're seeing at like a showcase show or something like that. And like, they want you to do well. And I wish I would have, I think some of it too was the environment of what I came up in at some of the open mics, where like the culture can be really negative, like just in like people wanting to see other people fail and stuff. And like, it took a few like really cool, nice people to pull me aside and just be like, hey man, like, like you're doing all right, like you're doing well. And you just don't get a lot of that reinforcement at time, or I didn't. And it all happened so quickly too.
So you think you overestimate the judgmental nature of a crowd? Like you think there's something like, maybe you wouldn't say this explicitly, but the feeling is that there's like hostility, or like it's like I understand like it can feel like the crowd's like make me laugh, and it's like a challenge, but it's actually they showed up for you to do exactly that. They want you to do that.
It felt like going into the lion's den.
Yeah.
And I heard a couple comics that I really liked referring to that early on, and I was like, it was my adrenaline going and whatever. And now that I've realized like your adrenaline's there for a reason.
Yeah.
You're having that response for a reason, and it helps you on stage. And those people aren't your enemies.
Yeah.
And like, if they're paying money to go to a show, exactly what you said. But the problem is like a lot of the like training that you go through is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So like at open mics, you're in a situation where they don't want you there. And I think that's why so many, like when you see someone that's done a lot of open mic and they go to these shows, they're super hostile to the crowd because like a lot of the crowd they see, and there's so many different frames of mind around this. Like Hans Kim was on recently, and like he swears by open mic. Like he's probably done more open mic comedy. I'm at close that window.
He's the open mic goat.
He's the goat for sure. And like his mentality is, if you can make a room full of bitter, angry comics laughing, then that's a really good joke.
Yeah.
And
no, I agree with that.
I think
sometimes
to an extent, because it's like the thing that's going to make that small subgroup laugh is probably going to be a different taste than what like a mainstream audience might be.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I wanted to say two things. First about adrenaline, and then about a crowd that shows up to a show at a club. The first, and these are two things that other people have told me. Someone told me that their therapist told them that that nervousness and excitement are the same thing to your body, and it's a matter of like, how are you perceiving it? So when you step on stage and you're nervous, like that would be the negative connotation of it. But you could just go, "Hey, I'm excited," and use that excitement, use that enthusiasm. Like you want, like there's something, there's an excitement to it. And that's a positive thing, excitement. Like, anything in life that's exciting, like good. And yeah, nervousness does accompany that, but they're kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing was that a comic said, I don't even know who it was. I heard it on a podcast or something, but it was like, it's pretty zen, but it's like basically that the laughter already exists in the room. They brought the laughter with them, and you just have to release it. You have to find the points of release, but you don't they want to laugh. It's already built up inside of them. They brought it with them, and then you just find how to release it. It's already there in the room.
Damn. I haven't heard that before. I like it though. Damn.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, peaceful thought. Let me see if I got any other. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about religion before, kind of wrapping up, or?
I don't know. I talk about religion too much as it is. I talk about it all the time.
What about just the Fringe Festival? I'm not familiar with them. You did Edinburgh. Edinburgh. I had like a speech impediment as a kid, and certain words just get me.
Yeah, it's okay. It's the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland. I did that in 2019. I'm gonna go back next year. Couldn't go 2020 or this year because of COVID, but I hope to go next year. But it's a 25-day festival. I did it at my hour each night of the festival, so it's 25 times in a row. Dude. It was awesome. That's the biggest Fringe festival in the world. Another one that I loved was it's called the Edmonton International Fringe. That's in Alberta. It's a smaller version of it, but it's a 10-day festival. So that was fun.
What does Fringe like? What is it? What all does it include?
Sure, everything. Any type of performing arts. The first Fringe festival was in Edinburgh. It was 1946, right after World War II, and the sort of idea was there was a huge theater festival, with symphonies and like giant theater productions in Edinburgh, and all these actors and stuff they wanted to put on their own shows. So it was a DIY mentality, and they set up their own festival on the fringe of that festival, and then since 46, it's gone every year since then, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And so the idea is that you create your own original work and you bring it to the festival. And so, and then now there's a corporate element to it, but for many years it was just like people making art and then people showing up. Now there's huge sponsors and huge venues and stuff. But there's like, probably the city's population increases by 1.5 million people are there for the Fringe. People are walking around and you just hand out your flyers. People come to your show. I had a room like a 30-seat room, and it was full every night. And people put money in your little bucket, so I got money and stuff. That was good. But yeah, there's like probably like 3,000 to 5,000 comedians walking around, and so you just see everybody's shows. Then there's all the music and theater and burlesque and, any type of anything that you could think of is there. That's the case for, so that was the origin of the Fringe Festival. And now there's Fringe festivals all over the world. And the idea is that you submit, there's a lottery system for some of them. But if you do like a smaller city one, just by you, they'll take anybody. That's kind of the idea. And then you have to sell tickets and get people to come to your show. But there's something really cool about that was where I first started doing a few hour. I was headlining one-nighter stuff in the Midwest, but then I started building hours specifically for Fringe festivals. Mm-hmm. And that was a way for me to put on my own show. Without waiting for anybody to tell me I could.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's a really good way to get a lot of time too.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. So the most recent one was in Salt Lake City. I loved that one. That was really fun.
Which one was that?
It's called the Great Salt Lake Fringe Festival.
Okay.
And
I might have to check that out. My brother lives down there.
Yeah.
And I want to go down to Salt Lake. I've heard, different kind of reviews about it, but I know there's 3 big clubs down there.
Yeah. Yeah. The Wise Guys clubs. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I got to fucking start getting ready to go down to the club. Where can people find your stuff? What social media do you got? Do you get a website or anything like that?
Yeah. Andrew Frank Comedy _ on Instagram. Andrew Frank on Facebook. I don't know what my YouTube is. I've just put up some sets on YouTube. I have an hour that I filmed when I was 23. It's fine. It was definitely good for at the time. But I don't know. People do like it though. But I'm very critical of myself. I haven't watched it in years, so I can't recommend that to anybody. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. AndrewFrankComedy.com is my website. I need to update new dates and stuff, but yeah. And if you live in Seattle, Adam and I are at Laughs all the time.
Yeah, come through.
Headlining. Me and Nikita Oster are co-headlining.
The 30th, right?
No,
the 29th.
October 29th.
That's right. Yeah.
Friday, 2 shows.
Yeah, come check out Laughs. It's my home club, Andrew's home club. I think I covered pretty much everything I had for you.
Yeah, that looks good.
I'm not sure if we're doing video for this. I'm getting it to Henry pretty late, but if you are watching on YouTube, comment, ask questions. If you got any questions for Andrew, I'll do my best to get him to answer those. Also hit the notifications bell and the like button. If you're on YouTube, that helps us hit the algorithm for YouTube and more people can see our stuff. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe to us, like us, comment. The same thing applies. And all of our stuff's on Instagram at FNFpod. We're going to leave you now with Jago.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement.